The day Griffin Stahl tossed a $20 bill at Owen Beaumont, he did it the way a man tosses bread to pigeons, without looking down, without breaking his sentence, without once considering that the boy standing 3 feet away from him had a mother who used to manage $60 million portfolios before the world fell apart on her. Owen was 16. He was carrying a mop. He'd come with Lena Beaumont that Saturday morning because her usual arrangement with the Stahl estate, 2 cleaners, 4 hours, done by noon, had fallen through when her coworker called in sick at 6 a.m. Lena needed the money badly enough that she made one phone call, then packed Owen into the van with her, promising him it would only be a few hours. It was supposed to be simple. Griffin Stahl had other ideas. He arrived home 40 minutes early from his golf game, walking through the side entrance of his Rosedale home the way men like him always walked through doors, as if every room had been waiting for them. He was tanned in that particular way that only happens on private courses. He wore a linen shirt that probably cost more than Owen's school trip to Ottawa. Behind him were 2 men Lena didn't recognize, both of them laughing at something Griffin had just said, and then all 3 of them stopped when they saw Owen standing in the foyer with the mop handle leaning against his shoulder, staring at a painting on the wall the way teenage boys sometimes stare at things. Not because they're trying to understand them, but because their mind is somewhere else entirely. "What's this?" Griffin said, not unpleasantly. He was the kind of man who kept his cruelty inside a pleasant voice. Lena appeared from the hallway. "Mr. Stahl, I'm sorry. Jolene couldn't make it today, so my son is helping me out. He'll stay out of your way." Griffin looked at Owen for a long moment. Then he reached into the breast pocket of his golf shirt, pulled out his billfold without fully opening it, and let a folded $20 bill fall onto the marble floor between them. "For your trouble, kid," he said, already turning away. "Don't touch anything." One of the men behind him laughed. The other had the decency to look at the floor. Owen didn't pick up the bill. He stood very still. And Lena, who had built the kind of composure that comes not from peace, but from practice, from years of absorbing things that would have broken other people, simply bent down, picked up the bill herself, folded it into her apron pocket, and went back to work. She didn't say anything to Owen until they were in the van. "Don't let it take up space in you," she said. Owen was quiet for a moment. Then, "Does that actually work for you?" She started the engine. "Some days." What Griffin Stahl did not know, what he had no reason to know and would not have cared about, if he did, was that Lena Beaumont had spent 17 years as a senior analyst at Meridian Capital in Toronto, before the firm collapsed in a fraud case she had nothing to do with. She'd been 38. Owen had been 9. The legal proceedings froze her accounts for 2 years, her professional reputation for longer, and by the time she surfaced on the other side of it, she was 41. The housing market had moved on without her, and the only work she could find that didn't require a current reference from a firm that no longer existed was contract cleaning. She was good at it, as it turned out. She was good at most things she put her hands to. She was also, and this is the part that matters, extraordinarily good at poker. Not casino poker. Not the kind played in fluorescent basements by men in novelty hats. The kind played in quiet rooms above restaurants on King Street West, where the buy-in started at $5,000 and the players didn't talk much, because men who talked much at those tables tended not to last long at them. She'd learned it from her father, a Croatian immigrant named Branko, who'd worked as a machinist in Hamilton for 32 years, and who spent his Friday evenings at a table with 4 other men, teaching Lena to read the room before she could read a chapter book. "Watching is the whole game," he used to say. "Everything else is just math." She'd been playing that quiet circuit for 3 years. Nobody at those tables knew her name. They knew her by the way she sat, very still, elbows off the table, never touching her chips until she was absolutely ready. And they respected her the way people respect anything they can't quite predict. Griffin Stahl, of course, knew none of this. The invitation arrived 6 weeks after the incident in the foyer. Not to Lena, to Owen. It came through the private school his friend Theo attended, the kind of school where the alumni charity gala doubled as a social sorting mechanism, where attendance meant something and the right people noticed. Theo's family had a spare seat at their table. Owen had helped Theo pass his calculus final. It seemed like a fair trade. Lena pressed his blazer the night before. She stood in the kitchen doorway watching him try to knot his tie, making the same mistake she'd watched his father make 20 years ago in the same patient, infuriating way. "You don't have to go," she said. "I want to go," Owen said. "I want to see how they live. You've cleaned their houses." "That's different." She knew it was different. She handed him the tie and fixed it herself. The gala was held at a venue in Yorkville. 100-year-old ceilings, donors' names on brass plaques, a jazz quartet playing in a corner that no one was listening to. Owen arrived with Theo's family, sat through dinner, and was doing a reasonably good job of existing invisibly, which is its own kind of skill, one his mother had inadvertently taught him. When Griffin Stahl arrived, he came late, the way men who don't need apologies always do. He brought 2 people with him. A woman Owen didn't recognize, and a man Owen would later learn was Declan Marsh, a property developer who had made a considerable portion of his fortune by being the second smartest person in any room Griffin Stahl occupied. Griffin worked the room. That was what it was. Work, professional and mechanical, the smile appearing and reappearing like a piece of software running a loop. Owen watched him from across the room the way his mother had taught him to watch things. Not staring, just noticing. At some point, the tables cleared and a poker setup appeared. Charity poker. 5,000 a seat, proceeds to the hospital foundation. 8 players. Owen, who had not planned on this, felt something shift in his chest, the specific pull his mother had described once as the table calling you. He called her from the bathroom. "There's a charity poker game," he said. 5,000 buy-in. Silence on her end. "I have my savings," he said, "the landscaping money. It's almost—" "Owen, I know how to play, Mum." More silence. Then, "Who else is playing?" he told her. The silence was different this time. "Tell me the room," she said. He described it, the layout, the lighting, the way the 8 chairs were arranged, who was sitting where, how they were holding their drinks, who was leaning in and who was leaning back. She was quiet for a long time. "Griffin Stahl," she finally said, "holds his cards with both hands when he's got something. He held his invoice folder that way when he looked at our work order. People don't change their hands." "That's it?" Owen said. "That's the beginning," she said. "The rest you'll figure out. You've watched me your whole life." He went back out. He bought a seat. Griffin noticed him approximately 30 seconds after Owen sat down. The recognition took a beat. The slight narrowing of the eyes that precedes placing a face out of context. Then it landed. "You're the maid's kid," Griffin said. Not quietly. The kind of statement that carries across a table. "Owen Beaumont," Owen said, and extended his hand across the felt. Griffin didn't take it. He smiled, though. The software smile. "You know how to play?" "A bit," Owen said. Declan Marsh, sitting to Griffin's left, leaned back in his chair with the specific amusement of a man who has watched his friend embarrass people before and found it reliable entertainment. "Charity case?" Griffin said, nodding toward the chip stack. "Landscaping," Owen said. "I mow lawns." Griffin laughed. Actually laughed. Not the software version, a real one, startled out of him. He looked at Declan. Declan shrugged in a way that meant, "Your call, I'm just watching." "All right, lawn boy," Griffin said, and picked up his cards. What happened over the next 90 minutes is the kind of thing that's difficult to explain to people who don't play cards, and perhaps too obvious to people who do. Owen lost the first hand deliberately, not dramatically, just enough to establish a pattern, to let Griffin build a picture of him. He played slightly too aggressively on the second hand, showed his cards too early on the third, made one small visible flinch on the fourth. He was, in short, giving Griffin a map with one careful wrong turn built into it. His mother had taught him that too. "Give them something to read," she'd said once, "and they'll stop looking for what you're actually doing." Griffin, to his credit, was not a poor player. He read the table well. He understood position. He had clearly played in rooms that cost more than this one and had won in them. But he had a tell Lena had spotted in 30 seconds of watching him hold a work order. When he was certain, truly certain, he held his cards with both hands and his right thumb ran a small circle over the corner of the top card. It was almost imperceptible. Owen had been watching for it since the first deal. By the sixth hand, the table had narrowed to 4 players: Owen, Griffin, Declan, and a woman named Zoe Calloway, who played clean, honest poker and had no business being in the same hand as any of the 3 of them. By the 8th hand, it was Owen and Griffin. The pot was not quite $1 million, but the side arrangement, which Griffin had proposed himself loudly in front of 6 witnesses when he'd been up by 40,000 and feeling expansive, was double it, Griffin had said 2 hours in. Whatever's in the pot at the end, I'll match it personally. You want to play for something real, lawn boy? Owen had looked at him for a long moment. Sure, he'd said. The 9th hand was 3 minutes long. Owen knew what he had before he looked. He could feel it, the way his mother had described. Not luck, not superstition, just the accumulated pressure of 8 hands of information, telling him what the deck was likely to do. He looked anyway, kept his face the same, and set his cards face down on the felt with the particular care of someone who has decided exactly what they're going to do next. Griffin bet high. Immediately. Too immediately. The tell wasn't in the cards this time. It was in the speed, the way a man bets when he thinks the outcome is already decided and he just needs to make it official. Owen called. Griffin raised. Owen looked at him across the table, not at his cards, not at the pot, at him. The way his mother had taught him to look, past the expression, past the performance, into the small muscle movements around the eyes and jaw that people can't control because they don't know they're making them. Griffin's right thumb was running its circle. Owen raised back, everything he had left. The table went quiet. Even the jazz quartet seemed to pause, though that was likely coincidence. Griffin looked at his cards, looked at Owen, looked at the pot. Then he looked at Owen again, and something shifted in his face, some small, private calculation completing itself. And for just a second, he was uncertain. It was the first time he'd been uncertain all evening. Owen watched it happen and felt something very calm settle in his chest. Griffin called. Owen laid down his hand. There was a moment of complete stillness. Then Declan Marsh made a sound, not a word, just a sound, and leaned back in his chair so far it was nearly horizontal, staring at the ceiling. Zoe Calloway said quietly, "Oh my God." Griffin Stahl sat very still for a long time. Then he set his cards down with tremendous care, as if the table had suddenly become fragile, and said nothing at all. He paid. That much needs to be said clearly. Griffin Stahl paid. He was not, in the end, a man who welched on debts made publicly, because that was a different kind of damage than the kind he could absorb. He made a phone call, stepped outside, came back 12 minutes later, and handed Owen a folded piece of paper that Owen didn't look at right away. "You're good," Griffin said. "Just that." "My mother taught me," Owen said. Something moved across Griffin's face. It wasn't quite shame. Men like that don't arrive at shame quickly, but it was something adjacent to it, something that at least had shame's address. He left shortly after. Declan Marsh stopped on his way out, paused beside Owen's chair, and said in a low voice, "Your mother, Lena Beaumont?" Owen looked up. "I thought I recognized you," Declan said. He didn't say anything else, just nodded, once, and walked out. Lena was awake when Owen came home. She was at the kitchen table with a cup of tea that had gone cold, still in her work clothes, because she had not been able to make herself do anything else for the past 3 hours. Owen set the paper on the table in front of her. She looked at it for a long time without touching it. "Did you play well?" she said finally. "I played like you," he said. She picked up the paper, set it back down, picked up her cold tea. "Owen," she said. "Yeah. Don't let it take up too much space in you either." He sat down across from her. "Does that actually work for you?" She thought about it more carefully than she had in the van 6 weeks ago. "It does now," she said. The money changed things in practical ways and in no other ways. Lena did not stop cleaning houses. She didn't do it out of principle or stubbornness. She did it because she was in the middle of several contracts and she didn't break contracts. And then when those were done, she took 2 weeks off. And when the 2 weeks were over, she had begun working with a securities law firm in Waterloo who had reached out after reading an old paper she'd published in 2009 on risk modeling. Declan Marsh had, apparently, sent them something. She never asked him exactly what. Owen used part of his landscaping money, the original amount, not the winnings, to buy a better mower. He had 3 new clients by April. The $20 bill, the one Griffin Stahl had dropped on the marble floor of his foyer 6 weeks earlier, was still folded in the pocket of Lena's work apron. She found it during laundry one afternoon, held it up to the window light, like she was checking it for something, then put it in the jar on the counter where they kept change for parking meters. It sat there for months. Neither of them spent it. I've thought about that detail more than most of the others. The way something can sit in a jar for months, not because you've forgotten it, and not because you're saving it for something, but because it has become a kind of small monument to the gap between what people think they see and what is actually there. Lena Beaumont walked into that Rosedale house carrying a mop and 17 years of expertise that no one in that building thought to ask about. Owen Beaumont sat down at that table, carrying lessons no one at it thought a lawn-mowing teenager could have. And here is the thing I keep coming back to, the question I want to leave with you tonight. How many times have you been in that room? Not as Griffin Stahl, perhaps, but as one of the people behind him who saw the $20 bill fall and looked at the floor. How many times have you watched someone be made small and thought, well, that's not my business? Because it is, maybe. It's always a little bit your business. The next time you're in a room where someone is being measured by what they're holding instead of what they know, I wonder what you'll do with that moment. I wonder if you'll pick up the bill yourself, or leave it there, or do the third thing, the harder thing, which is to say out loud what everyone in the room already knows and no one is saying. That's the question. You know the answer. You've always known it.